Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to talk about the early historical developments that have taken place in the field of international law. Though the modern international system is merely 400 to 500 years old, yet the building blocks of international law could be traced back to thousands of years ago in various ancient civilizations. Today, I will be talking about 6 instances of those ancient civilizations. There are many instances, in fact, there are countless instances where we could find traces of international law, where we could find international treaties, or where we could find some kind of international law in ancient periods, but we would be confining ourselves to 6 instances: Sumerian civilization, Egyptian civilization, ancient Israel, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and the early Islamic world. Now, before moving further, I want to make a small request to all of you that please subscribe my channel. It would help me immensely and it would do me a lot of good. Now, without wasting time, let us move on to the Sumerian civilization. So where was this Sumerian civilization located? It was located in the modern day Iraq. The time period that we are talking about is around 2600 BC. During this point of time, there were 2 ancient Sumerian cities of Lagash and Umma, and their rulers entered into a border treaty defining their boundary marks. Basically, there were a lot of conflicts that were taking place between Lagash and Umma. So in order to bring peace and prosperity in their region, they entered into a treaty defining their boundaries. Now, the evidence of this treaty was found on a stone block. The next instance that we would be talking about is the Egyptian-Hittite Peace Treaty that took place at around 1200 BC. It was entered into between Pharaoh Ramses II of Egypt and King Hattusili III of Hittites for establishment of peace, respect for territorial integrity, no state aggression, and a defensive alliance. Basically, there were lot of conflicts between Egypt and Hittites. So, in order to bring an end to these conflicts, they entered into a treaty. However, their peace did not last forever, and within a few decades, they entered into a war, which was known as the Battle of Kadesh. And that is why this Egyptian-Hittites Treaty is also known as the Kadesh Treaty. The next instance that I want to talk about is of Prophet Isaiah of ancient Israel. He was present in Israel at around 800 BC, and he said in his various works that agreements that are entered into by these states must be respected even when those agreements are entered with the enemy states or with any enemy entity. So even if you have entered into a treaty with a person who you do not like, still you must respect that treaty or agreement. And at around same time, that is at around 800 BC, the ancient Greek civilization was also thriving. It is also known as the Hellenistic civilization. And as you know, that Greek civilization consisted of numerous city-states. It had number of city-states, and those city-states carried out trade and commerce amongst them. They were thriving. And in order to have effective trade, commerce, peace, prosperity, security, etc., they entered into numerous treaties with each other that linked all the city-states together in a network of commercial and political associations. Thereafter, it would also be pertinent to mention about the Roman Empire that was present from around 30 BC to 476 AD. As you know, Roman Empire was very vast. It had lot of geographical territories and it continuously expanded with time. And the law that was present in the early Roman Empire was known as jus civile. It was the law that applied only to Roman citizens. However, as the Roman Empire expanded, a need was felt to expand their laws that would cover the foreign citizens as well or the foreigners as well. So from jus civile they shifted to jus gentium, which means simplified rules to govern the relations between foreigners and the citizens of Roman Empire. This jus gentium was found in an instrument known as Praetor Peregrinus, and later on jus gentium became the norm and jus civile took the back seat. All this jus civile and jus gentium of Roman Empire could be found in a legal compilation known as Corpus Juris Civilis that contained the classical rules of Roman law. Now let us move forward in the timeline to 1000 AD, and at this point of time Islamic religion and culture was thriving like anything, and there were many states that were completely Islamic in nature, and that is why a concept was introduced by Islamic scholars that is known as Dar al-Islam. This literally means house of Islam, and it connotes all the countries that were under Muslim sovereignty at that point of time. And Abu Hanifa is generally considered as the founder of this concept of Dar al-Islam. Basically, if any country wanted to be a part of Dar al-Islam, that is a part of this confederation of Islamic countries, then they had to meet certain requirements. Those requirements were laid down in this concept of Dar al-Islam. We will not be going into the specific requirements as it would consume a lot of time, but what you simply need to know is that Dar al-Islam was a kind of a regional treaty or an agreement between the various states that were prevailing at that point of time that were under Muslim sovereignty. Another interesting concept that was prevalent in the early Islamic world was that of Aman. Aman basically meant a law that dealt with hospitality and safety of diplomats and foreigners. So you could call it as a sort of private international law. Now there are various other instances of international law that took place in the early historical period, but if we'll start discussing all of them, it would consume hours and hours and it would make this show extremely lengthy. And these 6 instances show us very categorically that international law was not absent in the early historical period, and in fact it was used as a tool by the various city-states and by the various ancient civilizations and rulers to carry out the administration of their territories in an effective manner. So I'll end the show here, and in the next episode we will be talking about the history of modern international law. And before saying goodbye, I would like to again make the same request that please subscribe and like my channel. Thank you. See you next time.